That's the professor that was here years ago. And he absolutely persuaded the entire auditorium in Arts 150, where he lectured, that we had already passed the point at which there was going to be no return. That within 100 years, and that's 10, 15 years ago, that the earth would no longer support human life. Very depressing, and his argument seemed pretty sound. And we got up, and we went out into the parking lot, turned on our SUVs, and drove home. So, but from that point, I realized that the United States, on the average, so this is statistics, so it's not saying one particular person uses more than somebody else, but statistically, and I'm sure you've heard this, that citizens of the United States use lots more carbon as a general measurement than people in any other country. And then of all the states in the United States, the people that use the most carbon are the people that live in Alaska. Roughly 25 times as much carbon. And you think, well, why is that the case? Well, everything in this room was imported from the lower 48 or abroad. None of this room was constructed from materials or even by labor that lived here in Alaska. And when I go to Cars and pick out groceries, not a single thing there except for maybe some potatoes and some other things that are labeled Alaska grown, right? A very small part of the store, and I do buy those because they're from Palmer. Everything else came from out of state, and if you look at the map and you see how far that means they traveled, my favorite especially is grapes from Chile.
Yeah.
Right? And yet we can afford them. I mean, they are at least twice as expensive. I remember one year Donna and I went down to Las Vegas, not because I'm a gambler, although I did get married, but we went down to Las Vegas because that's where her mother lived, and we would visit her mother. And so we would go there. We did like to go to the casinos. I went into the casinos, and I always did win, actually, because at the time you would go into a casino, first thing you would do is you would get your little plastic card, and they would give you $25 to start you off on the card. And so I would go and I'd plug the card in, and as quickly as I could, just keep, it wasn't a handle, it was pushing the button, I think. It's no longer a one-armed bandit, but instead just to push the button bandit. And I would push it until I got it down to like $5, because you'd win a little, lose a little, win a little, lose a little, until you were down to nothing. Of course, their hope was that you would be so addicted by the machine that you would just start plugging in your own money in order to win. But at around $5, I would stop, and I would take the card in and cash out, and I would get $5 that I hadn't started with. So I always thought of myself as a victor, in this
Winning.
ridiculous thing. But I remember especially loving the art, especially in the Caesar's Palace. They have a full-size David there. And it's hilarious because if you go into Italy, into the museum where the David is, the crowds are always so thick that you can hardly get up close to see it. But in Las Vegas, where you have an exact duplicate made even from the same marble,
I didn't know that.
they have David there, and you could just hang out there because no one stops. It's ridiculous. It's actually the same thing. I mean, it's not the one that Michelangelo actually chiseled, I don't know how they made it, but there it is, and it's, as far as I understand it, it's an exact duplicate, made out of the same marble, and it's there. It's free. You don't have to pay to go into the casino. And even at the time that we did this, the parking was free. I understand that the parking now costs a lot of money down there. Things have changed and it's a lot more expensive. But her mom died, so we're not going down there anymore. But the thing that got us was, once we arrived, we at the time used to use a Marriott credit card, and so we would get points with Marriott. Now I use a MasterCard with the Bass Pro Shop, and as a result I get points, and from those points I get things like this shirt, which you'll notice I'm not tucking, because then I've got the, when you got the suspenders, because I'm at the age where my shape means that any pants I wear are more subject to gravity than they've ever been. So I have to wear suspenders. But we would go, once we checked into the hotel that we were going to stay for the week, we would then go to a Walmart down there and buy groceries to get us through the week, so that, because we'd have a little kitchenette in the free place that we stayed with our points. And so we would go into the Walmart, and the prices were ridiculously low compared to what we would pay any place here. So clearly, that's why the cost of living here is so much higher. It's because of shipping all this stuff. So when you get right down to it, we're living here in Alaska is using up more carbon than anybody else anywhere on Earth, statistically. So, I'm sure you could find somebody that's, in fact, one of my favorite things is that the colleagues I have who specialize in ecology and ethics spend more time traveling by air to give lectures about, conserving. And, when you leave here, sometimes you could smell the jet fuel in the air, and I know that flying is very convenient, much more practical than walking to Hawaii, because you can't, or swimming, which you can't. In other words, there's all kinds of stuff that we could do. You could visit places in a day that you couldn't even contemplate doing. And they're using a lot more carbon. If you fly 3 or 4 times a year out of state to different places, I would say you're clearly using a lot more carbon than most people here. But so, yeah, living here, in a sense, is totally adding to global warming. So if I really wanted to do my best to help decrease global warming, I should move someplace else. Or just die.
Honestly.
Which, depending on, who I'm talking to, they might prefer that. Если вы говорите по-русски, пожалуйста, you might
like that.
wish. However, how did we get on Ricard Soleil? The argument.
Getting rid of cars thing.
The getting rid of cars thing. So, they're presenting that as a fallacy. That might be considered actually a real clear issue. Ad hominem, I've mentioned this before, that's to the man. Ad is to or toward in Latin. And hominem is homo in the dative case. It has to take the dative case because it's after the preposition ad So this is an attack on the character of a person rather than his or her opinions or arguments. Greenpeace's strategies aren't effective because they are all dirty, lazy hippies, is the example they give. That's actually funny, isn't it? In this example, the author doesn't even name particular strategies Greenpeace has suggested or anything. It's just picking on them. And I mean, we're loaded with this leading up to, and it's not over yet, as we still have that divide, so-called, in our country. I think that when you think about that divide, we're ignoring the middle. You know, we've got the far right
Oh, yeah.
and the far left, you know, but most Americans are in here,
Right.
you know, so we're actually, and I agree with this totally, our values and our concerns and our hopes are really all pretty much within the same area, and the real question is, what can we do in order to improve life for,
The middle,
you know, well,
or for the independent?
I mean, we're in general, we want life to improve for everyone.
Right.
I don't know of anyone that feels like I want life to improve just for
these people.
these people.
I think I see what you're saying though, is like if you're hitting here and here and most Americans are in here, you're in tobacco getting that range. But,
It is fallacious to
yeah,
feel
that's
this way. It is clearly something that the news media picks on because if it's not stressful, if it's not urgent, if it's not
life-threatening.
life-threatening, as they say, if it bleeds, it leads. You know, we've got, you know, the destruction going on in different places. That's where the news focuses, right? Not on the rest of the world where things are actually happening fairly normally. So we're led by the media into thinking that life is, you know,
The end is nigh.
yeah. The end of the world is here. Happened yesterday,
Again.
and you missed it.
I was sleeping.
So ad populum, that came up. Someone asked, Colin, who's not here today, might be visiting us out there. Can't actually see everybody. Greetings to everybody out there. I hope you're having a good day. I keep waiting for the day when I come in here and no one else is here.
It almost happened that one day that I was
Almost
over
happened,
here.
and you know, but the ad populum was my closest, and my I mean, there might be, as I said, there are a lot of different lists. A lot of these fallacies are referred to with different titles. But the ad populum, it's the appeal to the majority or the populum means the population. So well, here you have a clearly incorrect translation, bandwagon appeal. What the heck do you mean by that? You know, well, jump on the bandwagon. You have to know what that expression means. It's is it even close to ad populum? Really, this means that the majority is wrong. Just because the majority want this means that no, only the elite, you know, who know what they're doing would then actually know the real answer, the right answer, but the majority of the people are simply wrong. Well, you know, calling the ad populum a fallacy basically says that you don't believe in democracy.
I was just thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and in our country, of course, we think of the majority, in a sense, rules. You know, So what's the right answer? Well, it's the answer that we all just voted on. Whether you liked it or not, Trump is our next president. He might be arrested next week
That's gonna be fun.
because of the trial,
He
the
won't.
felonies that he was found guilty of. That will be interesting if that happens. Can he rule from prison, in an orange outfit? I also understand that